Erev Tov, everyone. The last three makos are in this week's parsha, Arbe, Choshech, and Makas Bechoros. So with the Makkah of Arbe, Paro seems to buckle. He says, Miva Mia Holchim. I'm ready to let you go. Just tell me who's going. Give me your Tudat Zehut. Moshe answers him, Binoreinu Viskeneinu Nelech, Binoshenu B'Tapeinu, B'Fkoreinu, everybody's going. All the behemoths, everything is going. So here we have a contest of wills again. Paro apparently feels that that would be unconditional surrender. He's not willing to agree to it. So he therefore says, in anger already, frustration. We don't see the frustration of Moshe and of Paro until this Makkah. He says, you think you're going to do this? I'm never going to let it happen. You're never going to let that everybody's going to go. And Moshe leaves in anger. The Rambam says that the one character defect, God forbid, that we could say about Moshe was that he became angry at times. The Rambam says that throughout the Midbar, we find that whenever Moshe was in anger, something happened. So that's when he smote the rock. So the anger is because the person is not in control. When Moshe leaves in anger, then Paro Vayigore shows him. He kicks him out. He has the guards remove them from the palace. And he says, I'm never going to see you again. Don't you dare come back here again. So that was the effect of the Arbe. There's an old cynical Jewish joke about the Arbe. The Medrash says that the Arbe didn't go on Shabbos. So that's why Paro gave in, because a frume makkah that he couldn't take anymore. So anyway, Moshe, it's over. There's no more negotiations. Paro's not going to see him anymore. So then comes the Makkah of Choshech. So Choshech is without warning and without asking that it be removed. And the Makkah of Choshech is ambivalent. The Torah does not tell us regarding every Makkah what happened with the Jewish people. What was done by the Jewish people? It doesn't mention it. Sfardeya, Kinim, and in fact, the Makkah of Choshech, the Torah emphasizes L'chol b'nei Yisrael lo ya'or b'moshvo som. Yet the Medrash and the Gemara teach us that during the days of the Choshech, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews died. those that didn't want to go out from Mitzrayim, those that didn't believe, those that rebelled. So that, and the Rashi quotes it, in the time of the Choshech, the Jewish people were burying their dead. So therefore it was Choshech, so the Mitzrayim would not witness it. The Mitzrayim couldn't get up. And therefore, then they were unaware of the fact that the Jews also were so severely affected during that period of time. It's hard to understand that medrash, that during the Mak of Choshech, all of these people died. But then it says, L'chol b'nei Yisrael ha'ya'or b'moshvo son. So the Meforshim explain that the Mak of Choshech, more than any other Makkah, delineated between the Jewish people and the Mitzrayim. There is nothing that is as clear a line as between light and darkness. That's something that everybody can sense. When Paro sent messengers to see if the cattle of the Jewish people died, so they found out that they didn't die, but that's not public to the Mitzrayim. That's Paro's census. He doesn't reveal it. But here, when the Makkah of Choshech was on the whole Egyptian people, and the Jewish people had light, b'chol moshvoso. So the Meforshim point out that the Jews apparently, even when they were slaves, lived separate from the Egyptians. They lived in their own neighborhood, so to speak. And there was light. So the message to the Egyptians was clear. Here you have a clear delineation between right and wrong, between light and darkness. And the Paro and the Egyptians didn't give in to that. So that's the idea always. We say it in Havdalah every Saturday night, ben or l'choshech. If you could see there's a difference between or l'choshech, so then you're able to see there's a difference between Yisrael la'amim. If you see there's a difference between Yisrael la'amim, then you can see there's a difference between Yom HaShvi and Sheish Yismei HaMaseh. Those are progressive differences. To be able to recognize and delineate in order to be able to understand completely the message that the Ribono Shel Olam wants us to have. So this idea of L'chol b'nei Yisrael ha'or b'moshvosam, the Meforshim say, is an ongoing event. Was something that we should always see. But when we are not what we should be, so then there is a lot of darkness by us too. And there is not such a difference between Yisrael la'amim. And there is no difference between Shabbat and Chol. And all of that is part of this message of the Makkah of Choshech. That's why there's no preface to it, no suffix to it. It stands alone because it's an eternal Makkah. It represents something that is omnipresent in society, to be able to see the difference between things. It says, Rishoyim b'choshech ya'aloichem. Rishoyim always walk in darkness because they don't see the difference. If you don't see the difference, you're always walking in darkness. The nations are always encompassed by clouds and fog. Can't make it out. It's not clear. But sometimes in events, there are moments of clarity. And yet, people are not willing to follow those moments of clarity. That's why so many Jews died in Makas Choshech, because they didn't see the light. They didn't say, what's the difference? There is no difference. Well, if you say there is no difference, so that's a spiritual death immediately. That's a destruction that falls, God forbid, upon societies. And certainly in our world today, where there is unfortunately so much destruction in society, and in so-called religious society as well, terrible things happen. So we have to be able to see things clearly, not just to see the surface of things, not just to see what the outside looks like, but really to see. That's why it says, oh, your orb b'moshvosam. There was light, but it doesn't say that they saw. The ability to see was present because there was light, but it doesn't mean that they saw. And because of that, therefore, the Makas Choshech was a Makkah, so to speak, that consumed Jews as well. And again, that is quite apparent in our time as well. So from the last Makos, there are great lessons. Moshe refuses to compromise. The lesson always is that on right and wrong, there's very little room to compromise. And that one has to be able to see. And then that the Ribono Shel Olam takes over in the world. So those that followed the mitzvahs, that put the blood on the door, so they were saved. Those that did not were not. All of that is the preface to Matan Torah. It's the preface to receiving the Torah and be willing to say Nasev and Ishma and observe the mitzvahs, etc. And that's a distinct lesson, and not only for the time of Moshe and Mitzrayim, but for all generations as well, including our time as well. And that, therefore, those three Makos come here in Parshas Bo to point us in the right direction, to be able to appreciate Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that we should remember Yetzias Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayecha. Chananya ben Akash Omer Otza Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael Leficha Chir B'Lahem Torah and Mitzvot Shenemar L'Nach Havetz Tzman Tzitko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir. I think so. Amen.